Kyle. Appreciate it. All right, it has been an amazing 2 days. Our team does such a good job of putting on these events. I think I am keeping all of you from happy hour and DJ Kyle, who will be following up. Sorry. So here's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about top-line strategy, kind of heading into the second half of the year, and start high level and then get into some of the things that we're going to deliver. All right, so no notes, so I'm going to do this without notes. Okay, so top-line strategy overall is, I think it helps to actually start off and just kind of give everybody an understanding of how we look at product and what the world looks like to us within Avalabs. And if you can think of it as kind of the Avalanche triangle, kind of turned down, the one that you see in Twitter. And so we have these layers, and each of these layers kind of funnels into each other. So we start with platform technology, and that's really the stuff that's the deep tech. It's Avalanche Go, and it's data platform. It's the stuff that Steven and Patrick are heavily involved in. It's big brain stuff. So then we take that, right, and that's the foundation for everything. And then underneath that, we have what we call core properties. So core properties is all the technology that allows you to really leverage that deep technology in a way that the user can interact with it. So these are wallets, these are bridges, these are explorers. These types of core components. You have to have these two, and then it takes you into this third tier. And we've kind of progressed through these as the company matures. So third tier is called managed services. And so what that is basically doing is taking each of these technologies, these individual products that we've built, and really manufacturing them in a way that they can be stamped out for more broad usage, mass adoption. Some people call it institutionalization, but really so that, in subnets, and we'll get into this as a perfect example, so that you can start to build blockchain applications that suit your needs. Okay. So then, and underneath that, we have external partnerships. So we have a very talented BD team who work with partners who really understand what they're trying to do, and then translate that back through the product team into our engineering teams to help them deliver the solutions they need on Avalanche. And that's help with funding, co-marketing, engineering help. Oh, my notes are back. All right. So yes, one thing I want to say, it's very important. So, Patrick said this yesterday, and I want to reiterate this, that I am just a messenger for a very talented team that sits behind us. There's 24 product people, 7 disciplines within that. There's, I think, 3 times that in the engineers, and just as many squads. Right? And these are the amazing people that are responsible for all the progress we've had since Mainnet. And so I just really want to reiterate that it's this very talented team that makes everything we're going to talk about happen. And so as we get into strategy, right? So there's components of strategies that are global that never change. They're always just top of mind. They're fixed. Right? And so everything that we build has to be performant. And a lot of that has to do with the consensus algorithm, time-to-finality. It needs to be secure. It needs to be cost-effective, right? So, and these things are all related to each other. If you start to lose one, you start to lose the other. This is the nature of things. But everything we do starts there. Okay, so then we get into kind of what are we doing after that? What is it? It's been the same. If you saw the Barcelona talk, this will look very similar. So the first part's really looking at the user, right? How do we make Web3 more usable? How do we abstract away the weirdness of crypto and keep the parts that are super important, super novel, and then just kind of open it up to everybody? And this is really around the launch of Core and all the work we're doing there, which the version 1 made a bunch of leaps and bounds on making it more usable. The work that's coming up through the rest of the year, the other products, is just going to keep building this, and I'll get into that a little bit. Second piece, build for scale. So, we did, there's vertical scaling, I think Patrick talked about this, and there's horizontal scaling. And this is where we'll really get into subnets and kind of what the vision is for subnets. Then there's this third component, which is we need to eliminate builder friction. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, it goes back to what I was saying before, which is one blockchain is not going to suit everybody. As the use cases get more and more complex, as we see different channels getting involved, gaming, government, enterprise, they all have different needs, and they all need to deploy different technology. And so we don't want to put you into that box. Right? We want you to build your own box. And I'll get into kind of how we're doing this and what the rights are of anybody who deploys a subnet. They should have certain guarantees, which Avalabs that makes, right? And it enables you to do what you do best, which is build your product, get it to market for whatever the case is. Okay, so these have been the same since the beginning of the year. We've progressed on here. We continue down this path. So Core. So we had a fabulous launch of Core. It's been really well received. We've seen a lot of adoption, and more importantly, we've seen a lot of retention. So this is one of the key metrics we look at was, okay, great, everybody wants to try it. How many people keep using it? Right? And we see that over and over. And this goes back to make accessible, right? Core's goal is to make it accessible. And people are always asking, did we need another browser extension? Do we need another wallet? The answer is, well, yes and no. Right? Core was born out of the idea that if you are going to deploy a subnet on Avalanche, your subnet needs to be represented. Right? We can't wait for other wallets to come in or other explorers and say, hey, we're going to actually recognize the value of subnets. You need to have it from the day you launch. There needs to be an easy way to get your native token, your subnet, inside. And so that was like, okay, we got to build our own wallet. What is novel about Core, and this is what we'll get into, and then I'll kind of talk about some of the new features that are coming down. So the bridging was very novel. Michael just touched on this, and there's an entirely separate team that put all this together, and then there's a team from that integrates it. I see a lot of these team members here. So this is an idea of like, make it easy. You don't have to go somewhere else to bridge your tokens, and you shouldn't have to go somewhere else to bridge back. It should all be there for you when you want to do it, and it should support more and more chains as those chains become relevant, and we have the safety guarantees that we need to ensure that they're going to be good partners. Even if we don't formally partner with them, we need to know that we're serving our users in the best way possible. Okay, and then moving past that, what I think was really novel was, I talked about this, was subnet support. So we started with a fixed amount of subnets that launched. It was DFK and Swimmers, and then a few others in testnet. And there was something very novel that happened here because we were supporting subnets, is that it needed to automatically recognize what chain you're on and then automatically direct you to that chain. We don't want the user clicking through, what chain am I on, where is that chain, having to find it. As subnets take off, there's a likelihood that Core will support more blockchains than any other wallet in the industry. And that's people asking, is it multi-chain? It's absolutely multi-chain. And so we really need to make sure that as you move around between these subnets, it should be very seamless for the user. They shouldn't have to be thinking about what network they're on. And then Core recognizes that and automatically gives you this really nice UI. Right? They did this is where you can see all the networks you're participating in. You can see what assets you have in there, and then the one you're on, it pulls it up to the top for you. Again, just kind of the seamless experience. So is Core multi-chain? Absolutely. So in the very imminent future, it'll have full support for ETH. So it already acts as a full Bitcoin wallet. It's not just the Bitcoin bridge. It'll also, in the very near future, support Ethereum. So this means we don't want you to have to change between browser extensions. If you want to, we also want to support that. But for the time being, it's just let's get as many of the chains that we bridge towards, and let's make sure that those assets and that chain is properly represented in a way that allows you to, again, move between. We believe in this multi-chain world. Subnets, other chains. Our goal is to make it as easy as possible for you to move between. So again, this all goes back to this first objective that we said at the beginning of the year, make it accessible. And there's so many things we can keep doing here to improve on this, and we'll keep acting. But a lot of it is just around, even in your activity, like what did I do? And so we need these abstractions of wallet addresses and transaction hashes. We can't abstract all of Web3 away, but we have to strike a nice balance where if you want to attach somebody's name to a wallet address, then you should see that name, and you should have more of a Venmo type experience rather than trying to figure out wallet addresses by the first 4 or last 4, things like that. Okay, so where do we go next with Core? So the mobile app is coming very quickly on the back of the browser extension. So everything that you love about Core will be available on the go in a mobile app. So it'll be available Android and iOS. It'll have all of the functionality that you're used to with the browser extension, and we're working on these things like cross-platform syncing. So again, if you set up something and it's suited to your needs, these are kind of the benefits of the Web 2 world, is that everything goes back to a centralized server, you have it here, your profile, but at the same point, you're giving away a lot of your information, that information's being sold, and that's not a path that we're willing to go down. So as we look towards how do we sync these platforms, we look to do it in a way that we're not sharing any of your information, right? You own your own data. That starts at the very beginning. So let's jump into this a little bit. Okay, so it looks very similar, right? We try to keep a very consistent design sensibility as we go through. We don't want to make the user guess as they move between applications. You will see some additional stuff. We know people love to use their mobile apps for their watch list. They just degen on like, how's my portfolio doing? I do it myself. I'm in there like 300 to 500 times a day. So, we want you to put your favorites in there. We want you to be able to see them very quickly. And then the same idea around support for subnets. So we want you to see the chains that you're working on the most. We want you to see your assets within that chain. And then as you move around the chains, we want you to know where you're connected to and be very easy to move around within it. And then support for collectibles. There's also an aggregator framework that the data platform team is currently working on that's going to allow us to aggregate all the NFT marketplaces within the Avalanche ecosystem, be able to sell this. So from the application, you'll be able to buy and sell NFTs from Core, whether you're in the browser extension or in the mobile. So I kind of touched on this a little bit, and this kind of goes back to the design sensibilities that we constantly feedback from the user community, which is, don't make me work for it, right? And don't freak me out by stuff that I don't understand. Just try to give me as much information as I need, and then make it as digestible as possible without sacrificing security, or we don't want people blind signing or anything like that. So you start to see this here, right? It's like, what was my transaction? Well, it was a bridge. So you first know what you did, and then you can start to see from what to what, and then fees, and then if you click into this, it gets you into a whole layer of detail deeper. Same thing with with your swaps or your send and receives. It can really show you, if you're using the address book functionality, who you're sending stuff to. So it reads more like historical ledger rather than, and it's kind of abstracting away the Explorer aspects a little bit. Okay, and I touched on this, which is just watch lists. So the browser extension doesn't have this, so there are places where we're going to diverge, and it's just kind of doing our research and our interviews. Do people want their watch lists in the browser extension? Everything that we saw was kind of no. People use that primarily to sign transactions, but in mobile, absolutely. It was just a must-have feature. So it's in there. It's pretty slick. I'm excited to see that go to market. Okay, so this was our user. I'm way behind. Okay, so I'm going to speed this up a little bit. So subnets. So now we get into scaling, right? How to make this really, how do we grow? How do we mass adopt? Can we handle mass adoption? Our goal is, right, it's to bring this technology to everybody. It's the Internet of Finance. It's digitize and tokenize everything we can. So this all horizontally revolves around subnets and the great work that the platform team is doing. Patrick went over this yesterday, and I'm gonna talk on these things. But this is all about, back to one size doesn't fit all. You need to be able to build your application. You shouldn't be shoved in a box on, oh, you have to deploy to this network under this configuration. It is if you have a use case that requires its own network, its own native token. You know, if you have the prowess to customize your VM, then this gives you all the flexibility you need to do that in a very cost-effective manner. And the team just keeps making it easier and easier to deploy these things. Patrick went through the class yesterday. So I'm going to run through, if you did miss his presentation, which was excellent, he had this slide, and this just talks about what's coming next through the end of the year. So right now, all subnets are permissioned, permissionless subnets where validator sets can choose to participate in your subnet rather than you have to go out and find them. It can really ease the process. Cross-subnet bridging. So the ability, okay, so interoperability between subnets is key. We know that without a seamless way to send arbitrary messages cross subnets, cross other chains, this technology is not going to get mass adoption. That's what this is all about. And there's a fantastic project going on right now that is solving for this in a very novel way. And then new SDKs and new VMs. So this is around, like, the technology is so powerful, it's almost too flexible, right? It's like, all right, let's give people some boundaries around what is safe or things that can be done, and then give you kind of marketplaces to start with. It's all about having you not start from the basics. It's all about giving you as much of the meta around all the pieces that you need in order to get your idea down, deploy it out to market. So you're kind of building without limits and not having to worry about all the deep tech that sits underneath. Because blockchains are complex, and I'll get into this in the next slide. So we're calling this the subnet orchestra. So blockchains, if one blockchain in itself is very complex. If you're trying to just multiply that out in the form of subnets, there are all these supporting services that need to function properly in order for the subnet to function in the way you want. You have a blockchain without a wallet. Well, you don't really have a functioning blockchain. You're going to need your own. This is kind of the universe, but this is just a limited version of it. So we don't want you focusing on your primitives. This is where it comes down to. We want you to focus on your specific use case in your application. We want you to follow your vision. I want this blockchain to work this way, and I don't want to be limited. That's what all this is about. But in order to do that, you need to have most of these pieces in place for it to be able to operate properly. And so we're very focused on every single subnet that launches having this. So you get the guarantee that, oh, what if I launch a subnet? Is it going to be represented in the wallet? What if I launch a native token? Is it going to be represented in the wallet? Explorers are very complicated, right? Do I have to build my Explorer? No. Launch a subnet. You get all of these supporting suites underneath it. You move forward. Okay, so this is just one example, and this is going to be released very soon too, but this is the Subnet Explorer. So any subnet that launches gets its own Explorer. It comes with, it's a very deep and complex implementation that the team did. So as you launch, it's a very small process to do a pull request. That pull request gets picked up, and then you get added to the Subnet Explorer, and it starts to index your chain's data, and will represent that data in your own Explorer. So this is an example of the homepage where you can search for each of the subnets, easily find them, favorite them, so that they're there when you come back to them. Just a live feed, right? So your subnet specific to you, all the power of a very, very nice Explorer dedicated to just your community. And I'm going to go through just a few more of these, right? But it just gives you an idea that we're not just kind of skimming the surface here. We want to give builders the best suite of products that they have so that they have confidence when they're deploying on Avalanche that they're going to be supported by these suite of supporting products, and also, our team itself that's building and maintaining all these. Again, so you don't have to worry about it. Token details. And this example that we're showing is all for DeFi Kingdoms. And portfolio and history. So I got 56 seconds. Okay. So I keep hearing this, bear markets are for builders. And it sounds a little cliche, but I truly believe this, actually. Bear markets are the times when ideas that weren't necessarily in vogue in a bull market, right? So our last bull market was DeFi and NFTs. And there was very novel progress made at the beginning of that. And then you start to see kind of the same idea replicated with a slightly different twinge. And that kind of built up. And so the innovation, layer got fairly thin, and all these applications got tall, and it kind of topples over, and then it regrows. And this is the cycle that I've seen since I was in crypto since the beginning. But this is the time when we start to see the community start to take ideas that aren't in vogue, right, and start to work on it. I've talked to a bunch of projects here today of stuff that doesn't have to do with just plain DeFi, or if it is NFT, these are new novel ideas where they're really pushing the space forward. I also think that there was a discussion yesterday on what's going to make crypto take off again. And in my mind, it's novel use cases that actually make a difference and can have mass adoption. So I think these could come through, we're seeing government use cases that are pushing the envelope. We're seeing enterprise use cases. And then we're seeing a bunch of consumer use cases. And all of these are going to be the things that kind of put us into the next wave. So Avalanche, and our whole goal through the end of the year is, again, to create this foundation that allows the user to easily access everything, to not have to worry about, is my chain available? Is it fast? And then, because it'll scale. And then also all these services that allow you to focus on your business, your idea, get it to market as quickly as you can. Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate all of your time.